Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on October 18th, 2025 at approximately 8 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life journey to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every decision I make by. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue working for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before we get into things, I do want to tip my hat to Storm. He is our primary moderator. He stays in the background most of the time, but he's the one responsible for making sure that the tech runs properly. And rest assured, for me, for him doing that with me, that's a challenge. He's also the one that eliminates the problem children before they become problem children. Now, coming in with the gold, we have Mike Jones. Mike, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Today, we're actually going to be dealing with the human's place in the Galactic Consortium. I can't tell you how many people I have actually been asked by, why are we not a member of the Consortium? Well, the simplest answer is real easy. Okay, the backbone of the whole problem is this. Every single species member of the Consortium has a unified, it's got a global government. Now understand, a global government does not mean a dictatorship. Okay, it means the government is set up to handle all peoples across the planet, regardless of their race, regardless of their color or anything else. Just literally, if you're a member of that species, you're included. Now, of course, in the case of Earth, we have an interesting problem, and it's much more prevalent on Earth than it is on the rest of the planets. That is, Earth is home to a lot of hybrids. Okay, and that's because the reticulans developed the hybridization program, and they work primarily with humans because the triple helix of the human body is so much easier to work with than the rest of them. Now, contrary to what some professionals claim, not every hybrid knows they're a hybrid. Okay. If you think about it, how many adopted kids out there know they're adopted? But under the Consortium, okay, humans are not, they are being watched, they are being protected, and down the road, they will be included. Assuming, of course, mankind does not blow itself out of the water again. And yes, I do mean again. Okay, the catch is this. People across the board, and this does not mean all people, but the majority of people have to be treating each other as equals. In other words, scrap the skin color, scrap the orientation. Don't worry about where on the planet you're living. Okay, treat each other equally. Okay, that is the primary backbone that the Consortium is looking for. Now, yes, some people, like I'm not the only one that gets to talk to these people. Okay, I'm just the only one I personally know. But here's the kicker to it. When you look at the Consortium, it is an amalgamation of a minimum of 2,500 species. Okay, Eternity Eternal, you are in with the silver. How you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, when I'm talking about species, understand, humans are one species. But as near as I've come to understand we've got 7 or 8 different races. Okay, I've never actually done a count. With the reticulans, they've got at least 15 different races, but they're all reticulans. Okay, now with the consortium is very worried about humanity itself because humans on the whole have the capacity to use what humans call 0-point energy, meaning we can literally warp reality. And in with the bronze is Bob Thorson. How you doing, Bob? And again, guys, when you have a question, absolutely put it in the chat room, but please put it in all caps so I can actually find the thing. You'll notice I lean towards the screen a lot when I'm aiming to try and read what's written there. Now, that's the first thing, is that 0-point energy, where humans can, when they work together, warp the daylights out of visible reality. Okay, this makes them dangerous, especially given the fact that that humans are essentially children and very unruly, very fear-based, and extremely curious. This is a bad combination when you start dealing with starships. But humans are periodically, now just to put people's minds at ease, I've had a lot of people over the years ask me, can I help get them in contact with the off-worlders? In all fairness, I have had that I can cognitively say this is how it worked. I've had one person in my life that I managed to actually set that in motion for. Okay, they had it corroborated by a number of other people. But the best I can tell you is make certain that when you're looking at getting more involved with the off-worlders, the more equally you treat the people around you. And understand, when I talk about treating people equally, I personally, and this is where I get a little bit of a boost, I think. When I say I treat everybody equally, I'm referring to animals, plants, and people. Okay, not to mention elementals and a bunch of other things. Okay, it's just I don't see a difference. They've got different vehicles, and that's all it boils down to. But the people themselves and the consortium knows this. Okay, now bearing in mind that humans are not members of the consortium yet, they do not have a place on the council. And of course, in all fairness, you remember my mentioning 2,500 member species? Only 12 sit on the primary council. There are 3 tiers of council, making a total of 36. Okay, but only 12 out of 2,500 species take a seat on the primary council. Many humans are working to try and make things right. Okay, ironically, or maybe that's the wrong word, humans seem to be spending more time trying to figure out how to make contact with off-worlders instead of how to get along with each other. And that's the backbone of becoming active members, becoming an active member species inside the consortium. Now, here's the other thing that you'll find. One of the benefits of becoming a consortium member is all of a sudden the entire galactic universe, well, that was said wrong, the entire area that the consortium spans becomes open. But there's a lot of work to be done. Okay, now humans, yes, many humans, hate to tell you this, guys, many humans, although Earth is protected, are abducted. You know this, I'm sure you do. Many are not returned. They become members, they literally become residents of various intergalactic zoos. Now, when I said Earth is protected, I did not say they are totally devoid of interference or nobody can come here. All it means is that nobody will invade. Okay, and this is why when humans look at me and go, oh, we're in danger of being invaded. No, you're not. Although it's an interesting idea. Cowie, you are in with honorable mention. How you doing? Glad you could join us. Hopefully things are going well on your end. But yeah, the reality of the consortium is this. There is a major development there, okay, that is being handled. Now, here's the neat part, okay, and I've mentioned this before. Some of you have heard me, some of you haven't. Earth itself, we've been told, is a single star. Mankind has not got the technology to realize the reality behind it. But Earth is part of a trinary star system, meaning take an equilateral star, an equilateral triangle, put Earth at one corner, at one point, and then you put two other planets at the other two. But they are so far off in the distance, mankind's technology cannot see them yet. Now, yes, some humans are having information shared with them. This is a way of the consortium slowly trying to bring mankind up to speed. The funny part about it is the consortium approached the governments of Earth decades ago. In all fairness, they approached them centuries ago, but we'll settle for the current decades one. You guys have heard, I'm sure you've heard, that the Germans back in World War II were rumored to have contact with aliens. Boy, I'm speaking really clearly today, aren't I? This is just one of those things I look at going, this is just me. But here's what you don't necessarily know. Every major country in the world had contact with various different alien races. Not all the same ones, but none of them would turn over weapons, okay, at all. Now, what do we got here? Just gotta get closer so I can actually read. Here we are. Oh, Cowie's got a piece of information for us. Approximately 284,000 people were reported missing by the Red Cross. Well, that's a complicated, and he goes, I'm not going to repeat exactly what you wrote, Cowie, but I understand it. Okay, he goes, where the H are they? Here's the thing. The Red Cross cannot track everybody because, and this is not the majority, okay, but people do tend to wander away from Red Cross embarkments where the Red Cross are treating people. People get up and wander off either because they don't know where they are or because they just don't want to stay there. There are some that get murdered and get lost. There are many that got abducted. Okay. And I do mean abducted by off-worlders, not to mention the ones that are abducted by humans. Okay. And I have no doubt there are some people that are just plain not reported or not recorded by the Red Cross. And this is not a fault of the Red Cross. I mean, technically it is that they're doing. But with the amount of times that they are spread out in real dangerous situations, is it any wonder they can't keep track of everybody? But when you look at, let me just see if I can do this. Go 264. divided by, that's 264,000. Yeah. See, that means the Red Cross loses approximately just barely over 3% of the people. Okay. Now, that's 3% of the population of Earth, if my math is correct. Okay, but this is what's happening. And it's a wide array. Not to mention, especially in really dangerous places, and whether that's a war-torn area or a natural disaster. In many dangerous places, people will get lost. Okay, either like if you take a look at places where tsunamis have hit or earthquakes, you may end up with people dropping into sinkholes, that sort of thing, and they just aren't tracked. Can't picture why not. But the consortium, they started off trying to deal with the governments. Only the governments were so intent on war and broke so many treaties that were made and so many agreements that the consortium just said, scrap it, we're not dealing with the governments. And they tried dealing with the corporations. Turned out, and that's where they started dealing with things like, medical concepts, not medication, not medical technology, but medical concepts to help people wrap their brain, to help the modern people wrap their brain around what was possible. However, they were supposed to take these concepts and use them to benefit mankind. Sadly, most of the corporations have done the exact opposite. They took the insights, sat on them, classified them as confidential or as, either that or as classified information, and they wouldn't release it until they were making a high profit. Net result, the consortium quit dealing with the corporations. Okay, can't personally blame them for that. And what they've done is turn to the individuals. Now, some of you have had your own contacts, and I'm not the one to tell you whether or not you're having accurate encounters or not. All I can do is tell you whether or not they match with what I've seen. The reality of it is this. When you look at the consortium, they are striving for peace amongst all peoples. Okay, and that is something that mankind has yet to figure out. Mankind can't seem to find peace amongst mankind. But that's what's got to be worked on. Okay, and yes, we have discussed the issue, some of the issues of, spirituality and what have you, and rest assured, in the consortium, there are a lot of variations, but they've all got the same thing in mind. Okay, yes, there are wars going on, but mankind is being brought up to speed, one person at a time, as it turns out, usually by individuals such as myself, that are spreading the word. Hopefully, effectively, you get to figure that one out. Okay, that war is not a path to peace. Winning a war does not bring peace. It brings quiet. Okay, but unfortunately, it creates its own problems. Now, the consortium is not devoid of war. A couple of obvious issues. The Strazazians are at war with the Teklak. Okay, however, they are relegated to only being at war with the Teklak in proximity to Earth. Teklak have a civil war going on. Okay, and of course the Xenon are just plain, they're having troubles. But we are working on negotiating peace with them. The Xenon, by the way, are an interesting group. They appear to be robotic. Not entirely. But they came into this area and nobody knew how to stop them. until we came to the idea, and we really haven't stopped them, but we got word from them, we got wind of their scouts, and literally got across them and look, you guys may not like bionomes, but imperative you leave them alive because you rely on their evolution for you to get your own ideas. The Xenon do not naturally evolve. Okay, all of their adjustments are upgrades. Okay, and I don't mean downloads, I mean they literally build a new piece and attach it to a Xenon. Picture, if you will, the Transformers, okay, of movie fame. Okay, that is essentially what your Xenon is. Okay, but they're not a ship, they are just literally that size. But there are individuals in the consortium. There are individuals in the consortium that are doing their level best to help humans understand, to help humans understand, but also to help the governing members of the consortium, to help them realize that mankind, they're not perfect, but they are making efforts. And more people are turning towards communication and peaceable interaction. Okay, yes, we've got wars all over the world right now, but the individuals are making a much better effort at it, at least from what I've seen. Now, could I look into all the wars going on? Certainly, but why bother? Okay, the reason that we look at this as positive perceptions, and that is literally thanks to L.A. Moon. She's the one that came up with the idea, with the title. Is so that we can stay focused on the good that's being done. Now, understand, the consortium has some rules in place, and mankind has trouble with these rules on Earth. Never mind in the consortium. Okay, but the consortium, because they have spotted mankind is evolving. They're at that break point of either blowing themselves all the way back to before the Stone Age, or finding peace on Earth. They're at that flip point. And this is why the consortium has them protected, meaning no member alien race is permitted to invade Earth or conquer Earth, or for that matter, even take on a prominent position in politics or industry. Okay, they also cannot. The consortium has absolutely forbidden high-tech weaponry to be passed on, like the schematics for it. Yes, the off-worlders are allowed to talk about what's possible. Okay, but mankind's feeling out a lot of these things on their own. And what you've got to realize is, as part of the same race, as part of the human species, you have the ability, if not the responsibility, to talk to the people around you and treat them as you desire to be treated. Show them it's possible. Okay, very important at this point. Now, before somebody jumps in and asks, the consortium has also forbidden anybody to step in and protect one nation against the next. Okay, on Earth. They can't do it on any other planet either, by the way. Okay, but they are permitted to step in and go. When I talk about advisors, I shouldn't say advisors. They have been asked. Renee Andrews, how are you? Glad you could join us. One of the things that they have been told is, certainly, as individuals, you can go down. You can certainly encourage humans to put down their weapons. Okay, you can encourage humans to talk things through with each other. Okay, and you can certainly talk about some of the weapons that are available, as in give an idea. Bear in mind, humans take ideas from some of the weirdest places. If I recall correctly, I believe, and I'm probably wrong on the person, but I believe it was Michelangelo that first designed the helicopter, or at least got credit for it. But that was based on the observation of seeds from plants falling. Okay, so consortium members are permitted if they make peaceable contact. It was Da Vinci. Okay, thank you so much, Storm. Like I said, I don't read history. I remember my own history, but history itself, not so much. Now, the neat part about it is with the consortium opening up and saying, hey, this is some of what we've managed to do. Humans are, with their curiosity and their inventive nature, okay, they are able to develop new technologies based on other ideas. Okay, based on ideas they're given. Now, some of you chalk this up to downloads. I'm guessing this is a modern term for simply getting an idea given to you. Okay, probably taps into the idea of computers. But when we look at the consortium, okay, mankind is encouraged to talk to people, to talk to member species, and find out how they see justice or how they see politics. Now, humans have their own political system, and even once they are a member species of the consortium, mankind will still be left to govern its own planet in its own fashion. They just have to learn that the consortium doesn't necessarily bend to their will. In all likelihood, it won't bend at all. One of the nice parts about it, about the consortium being open to new species, is they will draw people to them. Okay, and they will, then sometimes more than one species from one planet will end up a member species. However, the one constant is that whatever species is being brought in as a member of the consortium has to have a one world government. Okay. Now, there is no size limit to the government, or to the population. Now, of course, as we know, mankind covers most of Earth's land surface. We've got settlements in some pretty harsh places, but we don't have a shortage of land. We just have a shortage of what people seem to consider agreeable land. But the consortium will not step in. The consortium will not step in and say, oh, you're governing your world wrong. Unless it is not a one world government, at which point they just go, you're not one world, you're not a member of the consortium. That's the end of the discussion. But like I said, now, Earth already has the starting point of said government. That is, by my understanding, the UN. Okay, it's set up properly, or at least roughly properly, and that's the thing that needs to be expanded. Okay, but last I knew, there was something like 150 nations on Earth. In order for the consortium to open the door completely, that UN has to represent, at least it has to represent every nation on Earth. Okay. Right now, I don't think they've got that many people involved, especially when you think that some of the nations on Earth are very restricted in their advancements. Now, bear in mind, you don't have to have high tech to be represented. Well, correction. In the consortium, you don't have to have a high tech world in order to become a member species. Okay. Right now, as far as I gather, the UN only has nations involved that are what they consider technologically advanced, which means people like your Aborigines of Australia or the Pygmies of the Congo. These are nations that are not considered that don't seem to be considered in the UN. Now, yes, just before somebody jumps on that, some societies will not step forward and join. But this is why the majority has to be involved. Okay, so you think in terms of 150 nations, you'd have to have at least 76 nations represented in the UN in a one world government, okay, in order to make headway. That's like they're going to require that to start with. Then they start looking at the rest. Now, the good news is about 30 years ago, the majority of humans, to my understanding, about 62% of humans at that time believed that off-worlders existed. Now, again, in order for the consortium to even consider making contact, like making viable contact, you'd have to have at least 51% of the population accepting that that aliens exist. This does not mean they have to have contact. It simply means they've got to believe it's possible. Okay, well, mankind passed that a long time ago. So what you're looking at now is helping the people around you accept two factors. And this is assuming you're interested in seeing mankind become a member species of the consortium. Your task as individuals is treat everybody, animals, plants, people, all nationalities, all genders, okay, as equals. This does not mean you have to agree with them all. It doesn't even mean you have to like them all. It simply means you have to do your part to treat them equally. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, the second aspect is encourage people to start communicating, and we're going to cover that in another session not too terribly far down the road here. Matter of fact, where are we? There we are. Yeah, tomorrow we'll be dealing with the importance of communication and explain how that all works. But when we're looking at the consortium, many humans have been seen wandering the halls. Well, that almost sounds like aimlessly, being gifted access to the consortium ships. Not to the bridge, not very often to the bridges or command centers, but just amongst the common populace. Okay. And the reason for that is so that people like me can come to you and go, look, this is what we're up against. Now, I will tell you, if you're listening to people telling you that intergalactic war is imminent against Earth, close your ears. Because number one, okay, two things to consider. Number one, in my experience, in my opinion, not happening. Much more importantly, if an intergalactic war were to start against mankind, scrap the consortium. Okay, but the war would be over before mankind knew it even existed. The consortium, on the other hand, is very interested in seeing where the wider, the more open minds of Earth, of mankind, can get to. Now understand, the more open minds does not necessarily mean the scientists. Now, I do know of one extremely intelligent scientist, and I'm not going to tell you the name, okay, that made an absolutely bizarre comment. They turned around and flat out said, all aliens are dangerous. Okay, now, I'm paraphrasing. It may have been all aliens are hostile. Okay, now this was from one of the greatest scientific minds of our era. Okay, but you get to figure out which one. The reality is that mankind has some real brilliant people amongst it. Okay, and the consortium is watching this. Especially, like, I am certain, I forget who it was that sent it to me. I wouldn't tell you anyway. But there was a gentleman years ago that sent me a picture of an item he was building. Okay, now I would lay odds that he made contact with the off-worlders when he opened that door, when he put that together. Okay, I'd lay odds on it, simply because his brain was working faster than what he could figure. It was kind of comical when he sent it to me. He goes, do you have any idea what this is? I looked at him and I went, yeah, it's this, and told him exactly what it was. And yes, I opened a can of worms there, which tells me what I'm going to deal with next Friday. Like I said, I make notes to make sure. And again, if you guys have a topic or a question that you'd like to go into in more depth, absolutely drop me a line. Put the request in the chat room if you're in here, and we will do our best to make it happen. Okay, I tend not to book too far in advance. I tried that already, and then it gets completely scrambled. So I'm just looking at booking a week in advance. Now, the other thing with the consortium and mankind, individuals are gaining access. Okay, but they're being given access or gifted access with some very specific kind of provisos, i.e., you see this? Yes, you can take the concept of what you've seen and talk to whoever it is on your plan that you'd like. Okay, see if you can get something going. You cannot take the schematics or take any of the equipment. Okay, because here's what happens if you do that. In order to keep everybody safe, the consortium will take that person if they find out that they have taken in schematics or are doing that side of passing information on. They will grab that. The consortium will come in, abduct that individual, and completely wipe his brain of all alien knowledge. Okay, if he does manage to successfully pass it on to somebody else, they will grab that individual as well. This is literally for mankind's protection. Okay, of course, somebody out there is going to go, well, they don't know what we as individuals are willing to do. This is true. But they do know the propensity for humans on the whole. And let's face it, it's one thing to take a computer and push a button and go, I wonder what this does. Okay, it's a whole other ball game to push a button on a weapon console of the consortium and go, I wonder what this button does. Because it may look like just another computer screen to you. Now, much as you may say, as an individual, you may well be straightforward. Okay, like if I tell somebody this is what I'm planning on doing, that's what I do. Now, yes, I've had my problems over my lifetime. I've made all sorts of miscalculations. The intention is there. And of course, the last 3 months have been a nightmare. But where it comes to mankind's place, we are being primed for inclusion. preferably before mankind blows itself back to the Stone Age. Now, as far as some sort of mass introduction, don't hold your breath. If we were to suddenly have a mass introduction, let's assume that mankind has gotten to the point where 75% of you say, yes, aliens are real, they actually exist. That leaves a quarter of the population that is going to have their entire world turned upside down in the event of a mass revelation. This is one of the reasons why they won't do it. However, you are absolutely encouraged to spread word and to talk to people around you, even in circles that don't usually deal with this. You're absolutely encouraged to talk to people around you about the existence of off-worlders, of ancient races, and as we just discovered last week, of the difference between Hollow Earth and Inner Earth. There's a lot of people around and a lot of change coming our direction. But it is up to us as individuals to really start laying the groundwork to let our species evolve and become a member species of the consortium. And yes, the more we get involved in it, the more likely we are to have some sort of impact. Because don't forget, they look at the members of the consortium do look at what people are doing, how much information they've got, how well they interact before they do a lot. Okay, this is just a normal upbringing for them. Kind of like it seems to be normal for humans to go, let's see something that we don't recognize, shoot at it, and then ask if it's friendly. This seems to be counterproductive to me. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at myself on the video and I'm thinking the way I do that, it looks like I'm writing in the air. But the mankind does have a spot, not exactly reserved, but they are being accommodated for inclusion in the consortium. My own personal assessment, and this is not backed by anything they've said, okay, but my own personal assessment says we're likely looking at a minimum of 50 to 100 years down the road before mankind even starts to approach that idea of a one world government. Okay, and until that happens, the rest of it can't. This idea of a mass revelation, and each member species is told the same thing when they get here. Do not make a viable public demonstration. Okay, they are told literally humans are not ready for it. You as an individual may well feel you are. Okay, and perhaps you are. Problem is, it's one thing to believe you're capable. It's another to actually be ready. Now, I've talked to a lot of ER nurses, and they've all said the same thing. Okay, about people, about some of the strongest appearing people. When their child is born, they go into the operating room, into the delivery room, and so many of them, of some of the biggest people these nurses have seen, some of the strongest, most, if you will, manly individuals, they see the delivery and they pass out. Okay, now that said, that's not a slight against anybody. Okay, that's an individual thing. And one thing that I have found with humans and the consortium, yes, it's great to be enthusiastic about it, but do your best not to get disappointed if you haven't made it that far yet. I do not understand how they choose who they're taking. I do know, or who they're inviting, I guess would be the better way of putting that. I do know, however, that they watch very closely on the individual behavior amongst their own peers and amongst strangers to see whether or not it's viable. Okay, and one of the things I did discover is that once a human is brought up onto a ship, most of the time they are brought back up on more than one, like on a repeated occasion. It's because of the fact that once you get up there, if you can tolerate all the weird things you're seeing, and rest assured, some of the technology is absolutely bizarre. Okay, some of their way of communicating, it's really hard to wrap your brain around. But what happens is they take you up there, they introduce you to a few people, and the ones you can connect with, that you can communicate with, those it's members of that species that become the liaison. And yeah, there's a whole pile of different species that do that. Okay. It just so happens I take a look at people, and yes, I'll notice if they're tall. Okay, heck, I was going through the hospital the other day, just a couple of months ago, and I saw this guy walking by, and I looked up at him, and I says, I gotta ask, how tall are you? The guy looks down on me, he goes, I'm 7'8". This put him 2 feet taller than me. Okay, I wasn't intimidated by him. It's just I was looking at the height of him going, wow. I do the same thing with other species. Okay, the thing is, I will talk to, for instance, a Laborian, which is a feline appearing race. Okay, I will quite readily talk to a Laborian. I'm not about to go out and try and pet a wild tiger. Okay, or for that matter, a tame one. I did have the pleasure of petting a live adult black panther. That's a story unto itself. But the consortium is slowly introducing humans. Quite often, they actually start with them being children. And the reason for that is because children will adapt much more easily than adults do. One of the things that we have to realize is that you have to have your mindset where all of these things are possible, not why am I not being taken? I really want to go, why are you not taking me? Okay, jealousy is not a viable substitute. So what we're looking at is slowly making headway, being introduced individual at a time. So if you've had the fortune of running into another race, or better yet, of getting on board a consortium ship. And yes, by the way, the big black triangles, those are consortium. Yes, mankind has reverse engineered and has their own version of them. But they are not, the ones mankind has built are not, as far as I understand, absolutely dead silent, nor do they move in any one of 360 degrees. Granted, one of the triangle ships, if it's traveling this way, it will not travel at the same speed going vertical. Way too much wind resistance. But what you are looking at is the consortium is striving to find individuals they can deal with. Okay, that are open-minded and relaxed enough to realize that yes, this is going on. It is not preparation for invasion or for mass abduction. There are other concepts that are being passed on as well, not the least of which is this whole issue of dimensional travel. If you take your understanding of dimensional travel and change that to vibratory rate, you'll have a much closer understanding of what's going on. The consortium does teach people this, okay, and if they end up with a number of humans together, they will teach them in a classroom setup, okay, because the idea here is put enough information down there to stack the deck in favor of a lack of of avoiding mass hysteria when the mass revelation comes. It's going to be a while down the road. Okay, I'll be happily surprised if I see it, and I'm still looking at living another 80 years. Yeah, I know that's pushing limits. That's okay. Okay, for those of you that are on the younger side, or especially if you have kids, absolutely involve them in these concepts. Okay, just like you're encouraged to involve them in concepts on Earth, such as operating in the political system, understanding how big corporations work. Okay, these are important factors, not to mention how to handle your money. All of these are concepts that as adults, we've got to start passing on to kids. Because picture, if you will, okay, if you take a look at the original Star Trek, the original Star Wars, and you look at the number of races that just take it for granted that they're there. Okay, thank you very much there, Storm. You know, when you look at these different movies, they show the possibility of all these different races sitting in the same room and amicably getting along on the whole. This is the reality of the consortium. In movie standpoint, it's a pipe dream. It's a great movie. Okay. But in the reality side of it, the consortium is gearing up for these kinds of individuals. Okay. And I'm still putting information together because there's way too much of it. Okay. I'll do what I can, but there you have it. Hopefully you understand at this point. Woo Ryder, how you doing? Thank you so much very much. Thank you so very much for that, Woo. You know, the important factor here is this. As a species, we are evolving. We are learning. Albeit in my eyes, very slowly, but we are striving to change. We're striving to change the path of 8 billion plus people. Now, right now, we have 696 in this room. Okay, not in this room, rather, but that are subscribed. If I go 696 times 40, we're reaching about 30,000 people. Okay, roughly. Now, I absolutely encourage you to invite your friends, neighbors, strangers, enemies to listen in, because this whole live stream is designed to bring people together, to put you all on the same footing. Okay, regardless of where you come from, how you got there, doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, part of why I do this is because by getting this across to people, it helps gear the planet and gear the people of this planet towards species involvement in the consortium. You know, this is just one of the many steps. I'm not the only person doing this. Okay, I'm just me. And rest assured, I don't exactly think things through, nor plan them. I'm still stunned by the amount of information I'm sitting on. And in all fairness, I've started looking at it going, everybody's got a wide array of information that they just seem to take for granted. I'll tell you, that came home when I was in the hospital. But with the consortium, they are striving to get people up to speed. But the fact of the matter is, they're not pushing the limits. Mankind has to evolve at its own pace. Okay, meaning humans have to be the ones driving the evolution. Now, your being here gives you a slightly different perspective, maybe a greatly different perspective of what's going on. And this is why I encourage you wholeheartedly to step forth and let people know. Okay, kind of an important factor. Now, we're down to the 5-minute mark. So I'd like to take this moment to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow, forgot about it. Just gotta double check that. Tomorrow, we are going to be dealing with the importance of communication on all levels. That said, we will be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. PST. Okay. And I hope to see you all there along with a bunch of extra friends. That said, until we talk again, take care of yourselves, and each other. And other than that, do your best to stay positive.